In 1853, over 4,000 steamers called at the port of Cincinnati. It was the height of the riverboat era. Moving products and people, these workhorses of the inland waterway were the single most important factor in the growth of Cincinnati into the Queen City. Tonight, relive the splendor of that time in Tall Stacks 88. Brought to you by Kroger, the home of cost-cutter low prices. And by Beachmont Toyota.
This is the splendor, the pageantry of Tall Stacks 88, the crowning event of the bicentennial year. 14 riverboats have gathered for this once-in-a-lifetime celebration, heralding the majesty of a bygone age. Good evening and welcome to Tall Stacks 88. I'm Jerry Springer.
And I'm Norma Rashid. You know, this has been an absolutely wonderful weekend, a weekend that we're all going to remember for a very, very long time. We'll look back at pictures in our albums and remember this weekend, but right now we're waiting for the departure ceremonies. That's when all the boats leave in procession, and we're going to look back at all the things that made this such a special weekend throughout the next couple of hours.
That's right. We've had over hundreds of thousands of people come down to the river from all over the world to be part of this celebration. It's kind of sad that it's all coming to an end.
Well, right now we're here at the public landing. We're overlooking the stage. It's right behind us, and that is where the departure ceremonies are going to take place. The hosts for the departure ceremonies are Toria Tolley.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the ceremony that brings to a close one of the greatest weekends that Cincinnati has ever had, and that's Tall Stacks Weekend. Did everybody have a good time? It's absolutely fantastic. As we look around and we see the tall boats and the steamships coming in, it really reminds us, looking at the various setup here, of a day gone by. The atmosphere is fantastic, and I don't think we could have asked for a better weekend. Maybe weather-wise, just in the past few hours, but it's gone great. And I think what we need now to add to the beautiful atmosphere of Tall Stacks is the Southern Gateway Chorus. Help me welcome them.
Bring back those railroad days, those good old railroad days. Live the life of a riverboat rambler, all dressed up like a Mississippi gambler. Railroad days, those good old railroad days. Mississippi and Missouri, Arkansas, Red, and the Ohio. Bring back those good old riverboat days. Good old riverboat days. Moving on a flatboat down the river all the way from Louisville. We're gonna play chug-a-lug and drink rye whiskey. When we get to Dalton, gonna be real risky. When I get my money, gonna gamble it all. Buy a great big bottle of gin. Gonna walk back home from New Orleans, just float down the river again. Bring back those riverboat days, those good old riverboat days. I wanna cool my feet in the Mississippi water, play strip poker with the captain's daughter. Riverboat days, those good old riverboat days. Mississippi and Missouri, Arkansas, Red, and the Ohio. Bring back those good old riverboat days. Good old riverboat days. Big side wheeler called the Natchez number 5. Going so fast that we left tomorrow. Yesterday is when we arrived. Water's getting low and folks look worried, but not that Natchez crew. They say she can run on a field of clover if you wait for the morning to bring back those riverboat days, those good old riverboat days. Mississippi and Missouri, Arkansas, Red, and the Ohio. Bring back those good old riverboat days just for me. Oh, yeah. Bring back those good old riverboat days.
The award-winning Southern Gateway Chorus. Thank you very much. I think that we also need to give a round of applause to the captains of the ships who came in. They came from all over the place, and if you got on any of the ships, you probably met one. Let's give them a big hand. Now, you've heard a lot of music, and it seems like we stepped right into the 1800s. There's someone here also to help us celebrate, and you've probably heard of this wonderful singer, and if it's possible to become a good friend in an hour, let me introduce my good friend, John Hartford. Now, this gentleman is very interesting, because he also happens to be a riverboat captain, although you say it's a pilot, correct?
Yeah, I'm a pilot.
Now tell me about that. What exactly do you do? Are you the one who maneuvers down the river?
Pilot here and pilot there. No, I just get to steer a little bit.
You also started on what we know now as the Delta Queen.
My first river job was out of Cincinnati here on the Delta Queen when it was owned by Green Line Steamers.
Does anybody remember that? Hometown boy.
From the foot of Main Street.
From the foot of Main Street, that's right. Well, the Delta Queen has been here all weekend. Did you get a chance to reminisce and go on board?
Sure have.
And you spent a lot of time on those, on the Delta Queen anyway.
Yeah, on Delta Queen and the Natchez down in New Orleans and the Belle of Louisville, and also on a boat called the Julia Bell Swain, which is up on the upper Mississippi, and I wish she was here, but she's not.
Well, something that also is appropriate is that we have a lot of the other captains here, and I think you ought to be the one to introduce them.
Now's the time to pull out my list.
I thought we were going to ad-lib.
Okay, all right. We have Captain Don Dobson from the President. Where is he at?
We'll be returning to Toria as Tall Stacks winds up, but let's go back a couple of days. Friday afternoon as the Delta Queen led the Tall Stacks into the port of Cincinnati. Calliope music filled the air as the parade of boats began its way upstream. The Delta Queen was the first to set the atmosphere for the celebration. Trumpet players were there to greet her as she docked. The other boats followed. From as far away as Memphis, Tennessee, 14 riverboats steamed into the port of Cincinnati, recreating an age we've only read about in history books. It's almost like we could relive the golden age of a young Cincinnati. Some people got into the spirit of the occasion and wanted to make new memories of the bygone Tall Stacks era.
I think it is the most fabulous thing I've ever done. It's the dream of my lifetime. This is what I've always wanted to do.
My great-grandchildren will have these.
No doubt, this was a weekend that all generations will cherish for a very long time. A steamboat that comes complete with a Calliope. Built in 1914 in Pittsburgh, this beautiful boat is now docked in Louisville.
At about 7 o'clock tonight, these boats will be leaving, let out as they were let in by our own Delta Queen.
Now, the ceremonies are going to be taking place right now. Let's go to Toria on stage. Toria?
Speaking of riverboat captains, I think we need to bring another one back out, John Hartford, because as we were talking, he has piloted the rivers, but he also does something else very, very well, and that's sing. Let's give him applause.
Thank you very much. If I can get this microphone to hold up here a little bit. I have a very dear, close friend here today that I'm very surprised and very glad that he was able to show up. And he and I are going to sing this next song together. I'd like for you to make welcome as soon as he gets a guitar. It's in that case on the back of the piano there. One of us was going to stand up in the audience, but Mr. Glenn Campbell. It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk. That makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. And it's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds and ink stains that have dried upon some line. That keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory, keeps you ever gentle on my mind. not clinging to the rocks and ivy planted on their columns now that binds me. Or something that somebody said because they thought we fit together walking. It's just knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk along some railroad track and find that you're waving from the back roads by the rivers of my memory. For hours you're just gentle on my mind. Sing the next verse by yourself.
I can think of it. They say the first thing that goes to memory ain't
Wheat fields and the clothesline.
though the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us. And some other woman crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone. I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain the face, and a summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you walking on the back road by the rivers flowing in along my mind.
One on the guitar now. Dip my cup of soup back from the gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard roughened in coal pile and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through caftans round a tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waving from the back roads by the rivers of my memory, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind. Gentle on my mind.
And you're gentle on my mind, Cincinnati. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot. It's great to be here for the Tall Stack.
Glenn Campbell, everybody.
Mr. Glenn Campbell.
By the way, if you want to hear Glenn Campbell sing some more, he'll be down at the P&G Pavilion at 7 o'clock, so we can't miss. Now, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Hartford, and you're going to finish up.
Where are we at?
Huh? Well, now they're going to let you sing another song. Yeah, and I don't sing it with you.
I tell you what, listening to Glenn Campbell, he was the inspiration why I decided to learn how to play.
Play the guitar and sing?
No, the tuba.
The tuba.
Well, because I heard him play the guitar, and I figured I'm out of my.
I've heard you play the guitar and sing, and that's why you should play the tuba.
I can do.
No,
Gentle on my
I love his songs. I love his songs. You know, the folks from WUBE brought Glenn Campbell here for this because they thought it would be just such a great idea and add to the event, which it has.
Perfect.
Like she said, he's performing at 7 o'clock at the P&G Pavilion. Let's go to Michael Collins. He's with some of the folks at WUBE. Michael?
Norma, I am with Bill and Jackie White, kind of the Norma and Jerry of country radio, morning radio here in Cincinnati. They do the morning show with like a cast of thousands. You brought Glenn Campbell in. Do they get together often, Hartford and Campbell, like that? The old days?
That'd be a real good question, Michael, because, of course, Glenn Campbell was the lucky beneficiary of Gentle on My Mind, which is one of the all-time musical classics and was the theme song for his TV show. So, to be real honest, I doubt that they do, so this is probably a treat for both of them.
On the river. Have you been down here much, Jackie, this week?
No, this is the first time, but let me tell you what, this is exciting. Beautiful boats lying up and down the Bicentennial Commons, the Serpentine Wall, and I've seen pretty much of them, but boy, it's really a sight to see.
Seeing all these riverboats down here, I kind of wish maybe they had riverboat service here again, you know? We could have these riverboats going up to Pittsburgh and maybe down to New Orleans or something like that?
Michael, I'm from St. Louis originally, and that's a big riverboat town. Boy, wouldn't it be great to hear all those calliopes again?
Oh, well, now that you put it that way, happy 2088. We'll see you then, Jerry and Norma.
Okay, thanks, Mike. We'll be back as Tall Stacks 88 continues.
Cincinnati's riverfront. It's one of only 6 steam-powered boats still operating today. Built in Scotland in 1926, the Delta Queen now makes her home in Cincinnati.
Welcome back to our condo by the river here. This is Tall Stacks 88. Now, coming up now is the first story produced by the students of the University of Cincinnati. With each of these stories, you will see the name of the student who actually produced the spot. Now, this first story, gives us the background of why riverboats were so important to the history and growth of Cincinnati. Our city's first means of transporting anything by river was a flatboat. During the flatboat era, beginning in 1789, agriculture was the primary occupation. As the settlement expanded, we saw a surplus of products for export, which were sent downstream to New Orleans. The flatboats were then broken apart, and the lumber was sold to build houses. With the keelboat came improvement. While flatboats were capable of downstream travel only, the keelboat could be pushed against the current by one strong boatman with a long pole. It took a month to go downstream and 3 months to return. But river travel was not always possible. In the summer, the river was only inches deep, and in the winter, it was clogged with ice. And at last came the bygone era of the steamboat. The steamboats had one specific purpose. They were invented so that people and freight could travel upriver as easy as they could down. Here in Cincinnati, during the early 20th century, the riverboats were born out of the need for people to travel from Pittsburgh to Cincinnati, on to Memphis, and then New Orleans. Cincinnati became a prominent shipbuilding place. Nearly a fourth of the vessels built on the western waters were launched right here. But Cincinnati's greatest era of development was when the river navigation was of the utmost importance. Our Queen City exceeded all other places in the West in number of boats. It was claimed, in fact, that no other place in the world had built more. From 1811 to 1829, out of the whole number of 314 steamboats built on the western waters, 81 had been built right here. For the year 1826, the imports were valued at over $2.5 million and the exports over $1 million. Most of these were carried to the West Indies and South America. Our highest export item of value was flour at $165,000, then whiskey and pork over $100,000 each. Cotton carrier Henry Frank was a record-setting boat. At New Orleans in April 1881, the Henry Frank brought in the largest number of cotton bales ever carried on a single hull. She carried 9,226 bales plus 250 tons of general freight. Built in 1902, the towboat Sprague was the largest stern-wheel vessel of her type in the world. She was designed to tow coal between Louisville and New Orleans. The Sprague set her own record in February of 1907, hitched to 56 coal boats and 4 barges, which contained 67,000 tons. She handled the greatest cargo ever in marine history. The Tom Green was originally built for passenger use, but in 1936, the passenger cabins were removed to make room for automobiles and general freight. Her trades were with the companies between Cincinnati and Louisville. She was named for Tom R. Green, who took control of the boat after his father, Captain Gordon Green, died in 1927. One of the most dearly loved excursion riverboats in Cincinnati was the Island Queen. She served for the old Coney Island amusement park as transportation from the public landing. The fare? At one time, only 25 cents. The second Island Queen was destroyed by fire in Pittsburgh on September 9th, 1947. And Coney Island never ran another boat. This boat, once designed and built to carry cotton, began one day to carry people. The Cincinnati-based Natchez was perhaps one of the very first pleasure boats, accommodated for people rather than cargo. Early residents of the Ohio Valley depended on the river for personal travel. It was, for a long time, the only way to go. Businesses were quick to see big profits from their riverboats. Some were very luxurious, with elegant staterooms, fancy dining saloons, glittering bars and lounges, gambling rooms, and even music and live entertainment. The calliope played a lively melody which echoed for miles around. Jazz music was introduced and spread by steamboat from New Orleans, as well as those classic Stephen Foster tunes from Kentucky. The elegance of the riverboats reached an all-time high as they earned their new exotic name, Floating Palaces. Here's what was considered the most luxurious boat on the Ohio. Built in 1867 at Pittsburgh, the Grand Republic was so beautifully designed, her pilot house was constructed with stained glass windows. She was completely destroyed by fire in 1877. If all this talk about floating palaces sounds vaguely familiar, it should. Today, they're some of the hottest entertainment spots for many Cincinnatians. Perhaps the only real difference between then and now is that most floating restaurants today are securely attached to the ground. Maybe we learned this lesson the hard way in March of 1910 from the Virginia. She found herself drifting away after being docked for the night. The next day, when floodwaters receded, she was discovered stuck right in the middle of a cornfield. The Virginia was finally saved when a canal was dug especially for her. Though stationary, these glittering palaces today are very much a modern version of the glamorous boats we just visited from the past. Though riverboat entertainment has changed drastically over the years, Cincinnati still holds firm to one very old and honored tradition. Our showboat Majestic is still a very honored form of entertainment in our community. With a high bid of $13,500, Cincinnati snatched her up in 1967, giving her a brand new life. Showboat Majestic is now permanently moored at the public landing, adding more nostalgia to our city. The highlight of the summer was a salute to some familiar faces of Cincinnati. The showboat presented Queen City Toast to celebrate our bicentennial, winged hogs and all.
Now, the Delta Queen is a flagship for the Tall Stacks, and on Friday afternoon when she arrived on board was a group of very special people. They were the group called Showboats A-Comin', a musical review group, and they entertained the rest of the crowds when the boats arrived.
When you think of riverboats, you think of all the men who made their reputations on the river, but women also played a very prominent role in the history of the river. River trade has not always been the exclusive domain of men. Women have played an important role in the history of riverboats as pilots, owners, and captains of their own tall stacks. Women like Callie French, or Aunt Callie as she was called. She was the captain of the showboat New Sensation in the early 1800s, one of the first female river captains on the Ohio. One of the most charismatic captains in our lifetime was Betty Blake. Captain Betty was actually her nickname, for she never officially received her captain's license. She was awarded that title for her triumphant effort to save the Delta Queen in the early 1970s from extinction due to current government legislation. Both Betty Blake and Callie French played important parts in the history of steamboats, but perhaps no one is so well remembered as the legendary Mary B. Green.
The founder of our company, Mary B. Green, was, of course, a pilot. She was Captain Mary.
Ma Green, as she was called, piloted 5 different steamboats up and down the Ohio. The last boat that she captained was the Delta Queen. In Mary Green's lifetime, she lived and worked on 28 different steamboats. She died in 1949 during her last voyage on the Delta Queen. Some say, however, that she never really died, that the spirit of Ma Green is still alive and watching over her Delta Queen.
Of course, is the fact that she did pass away on the boat. And yes, she did. She passed away right here. We're sworn to secrecy as to which room, but I can tell you this much, it's on this floor. And at the end of every cruise, the passengers are given comment cards where they are asked different questions. How did you like the food? How did you like the entertainment? What would you improve if you could? How can we improve our services to you? That type of thing. And it's always interesting to see the comment cards from the room that she died in. It's not always, I would say about once every month or so, we'll get comment cards on the room is noisy, something's wrong with the electricity, the light kept blinking off and on. The bathroom doors swung open and closed like it had a mind of its own. Strange wrappings on the wall. There have been times when we've had engineers, electricians check that particular room out. There's nothing wrong with that room, absolutely nothing wrong with it. But there are sounds that come from the wall. And occasionally a light will blink. Occasionally the bathroom door will swing open. And it could be just the creakings of a 62-year-old boat. And that's probably what it is. But it's interesting that it only happens in that one room. It happens in the room that she died in.
As the ghost stories of Mary Green continue to be told every night on the Delta Queen as a source of entertainment, one thing is for certain. The legend of Mary Green will live forever in the history of the Ohio River.
What a rich history.
Oh, it's great. You know, if you ever get an opportunity to take a ride on the Delta Queen, do it. It's a vacation you won't forget.
Absolutely fabulous.
Coming up next, Michael Collins will join us from the public landing. Stick around.
Built in 1925 here in Cincinnati, it was rebuilt in 1933 and now makes its home in St. Louis, Missouri. Welcome back to the grand finale of a wonderful Tall Stacks weekend. Our own Michael Collins has been taking part in the weekend festivities. He's right now at the public landing. Michael?
Right in front of the stage, Norman. We're talking to some of the people who are waiting in line even as we speak to get on some of the boats. Hi, what's your name?
Elizabeth Ader.
And that's Mom?
I'm Mom.
And you guys have been on some of the boats this weekend? Which one?
We went on about 3 or 4 to visit, and we're going out on a cruise tonight.
Did you have a favorite?
Well, I don't know really which was my favorite. I liked a bunch of things about different ones. I liked the size of the president, and, you know, I liked the crew on the Island Queen. They were really nice. But, you know, a lot of things impressed me about other boats, like, you know.
The boats are great fun to watch. You've been down here on the weekend, but you haven't been on a boat, have you?
No.
What's your name?
Eddie.
Eddie, I was on a boat called the President the other night, and this is what it was like. Look it over here.
Hi, welcome to the President.
Days, those good old riverboat days. I want to live the life of a riverboat rambler, all dressed up like a Mississippi gambler.
It had to be one of the hottest tickets in town this weekend, the Captain's Ball aboard the President.
These were the corporate sponsors who had the right to buy invitations, and this, yes, it's an invitation-only party.
And boy, did these folks get the royal treatment.
You were beautiful. Please don't stand too close to me because you will outshine me.
So what do you serve a crowd like this?
Steak, maybe ribs, soup, chicken, potatoes, pigs, I don't know.
Well, you're close. There was something from the 4 basic food groups.
We're doing swordfish, shrimp and sausage brochettes, roast tenderloin, pâtés, cheeses, fruits.
Now, for those of you planning a similar dinner at your home, here's a tip.
No Jell-O salad, Michael.
The sticky napkins were intentional. You see, everything was...
As it was 200 years ago.
The cost for this cruise, $85 a ticket. But had they taken a similar cruise down the Ohio 100 years ago during Cincinnati's centennial, the cost would have been slightly less.
About 100 years ago, a maid or a laborer might make $1 a day, $2 a day, something like that. So I might guess $5, $7 a day, or $7 for a ticket.
You say you want to get your tickets now so you won't miss the tricentennial celebration?
Well, at a moderate rate of inflation, you might have to get up as high as $800 to $1,000.
But will there be riverboats 100 years from now?
As long as there's somebody around to give them a lot of love and special care and willing to put the money into it, steamboats can run indefinitely.
Cincinnati is kind of like that, and one thing's for sure, 100 years from now, a view like this will still be for free.
And in addition to the cruises, Friday night was Light Up Cincinnati, and this was a chance to get a picture of the river that will probably never be recreated. The city, as always, was unusually beautiful, but with the tall stacks and their lights, this picture might be worth more than 1,000 words. The river has always provided that extra inspiration for photographers and artists alike, and capturing the flavor tall stacks was that challenge.
There's an old saying. A picture is worth 1,000 words.
we get to capture all the events that are happening. You're never going to be able to experience this ever again.
Whether it's captured during that magical moment in time, or watching the images come to life as a spectator in front of a Frank McElwain painting.
When I was a kid, I used to pass papers and loved the movies. First of the month when the comic books came out, oh, that was a big day. When I paint these scenes, I try to really put myself right down there on the street. I put in things that I'd like to see. As a result, they're more or less romantic paintings.
We thought Frank's work would be appropriate because he understands the history of the Sternwheeler age and could capture the romance and the beauty of the Sternwheelers, but we also had to capture the spirit of the skyline. So we wanted to juxtapose the modern skyline against the historic riverboats.
It's not so much the subject matter as how the painting's handled color-wise and with the brush strokes, again, to when somebody sees it, they just have an impression of being there.
There are some who might say we live in a plastic society, what with the 1980s having become the decade of conformity. It is refreshing as we progress toward our tricentennial to admire those flashes of individuality, those artists who conform to nothing but what lingers in their mind's eye.
In composing the photograph, I always look for very interesting foreground and make that the critical part of the photograph. If it's not interesting in the front, I don't really want to show what's in the background of the image.
I'm approaching it from a documentary standpoint, like photographing the event as it happens, people and activity. Hopefully we'll have nice light there too, but I think it's one of those sort of picture-perfect situations in a lot of ways.
I haven't really thought about it that much, but I want to be inside the boats a lot. I want to see what they look like and to shoot the people who actually work on the boats.
These images, whether captured by a camera or the stroke of a brush, will remain a constant reminder of this joyous celebration.
The nice thing about it is you put yourself in history in a way. You're part of the event, you're capturing it, you're giving something back to the city that not a whole lot of people have an opportunity to do.
This handful of talented artists accepted the task of documenting this year's events. Events, people, and places to be neatly tucked away for future generations to view and enjoy. Of this Queen City, a moment frozen in time. Come, step inside, won't you?
This weekend has shown Cincinnati to the world with a little extra dressing, and I hope everybody who lives here had a chance to see it firsthand. What do you think? Should we do this again next weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good idea.
Now, one of our UC producers came up with a great idea, a rather unique way to look at the history of our river using our local comics.
Hi, this is Joe Janes with another bogus bicentennial moment. Behind me, you see just a smidgen of the great Ohio River. Many important people have traveled down the Ohio, most notably in 1788, when a small band from New Jersey, possibly in search of a better bass player, came down the Ohio in flatboats, so called because they were boats. They liked what they saw here and settled into a community they called La Santaville, so named after the Greek god Vil, with La Santa meaning, oh wow, look at the carp. They later renamed it Cincinnati, after the Roman warrior, and of which the literal translation means artificially curled hair, a tradition that is still celebrated every Saturday night in the moose-laden trenches of 2nd Street. Excuse me, do you know who the first person to explore the Ohio River was?
A toaster.
A kitchen table.
Coffee table.
I don't know. Nell Carter, wasn't it?
1974 Gremlin, orange, racing stripes, mag wheels on the back.
I think it was Danny Terrio. No, that was Alexander Haig. God, I always get those two mixed up. I think they wear the same leotards.
Well, Cincinnati, it's a good thing I'm here, because the first man to explore the Ohio River was this man. No, it wasn't a toaster. For crying out loud. It was this guy, Rene Robert Cavalier de La Salle. In fact, it's from his name that we get the word we use today, meaning adventurous, bold, you know, the word Bob. And you know, one can't help but wonder, did he stop along here in primitive Cincinnati along his trail, maybe to take a quick nap, grab a snack, meet a babe? There's no evidence that there's something buried here. It's, happy birthday, Cincinnati. This is Joe Janes.
The triple-decked Island Queen sternwheeler, built in 1984 and based in Memphis, Tennessee. And the 3-year-old Southern Belle, 4 decks tall and docked in Chattanooga.
Kind of sad to think about, but in just a few moments, these majestic ships behind us will be returning home to their home ports.
You know, our Tall Stacks weekend has attracted nationwide attention. If you remember, Willard Scott was here on Friday doing the weather for the Today Show during the week, and then the entire crew from the Sunday Today Show was here today.
8:36 as we head towards the weekend. We go out to Cincinnati one final time where Willard Scott has found number 14.
There we are.
Mr. Scott.
Brian, I got one of your idols right here, Brian. Of course, we're in the great city of Cincinnati celebrating the 200th birthday. A native son, Pete Rose, all-time hit leader, 4,256 hits. Those are just umpires. What about Bulls?
The Today Show invasion began Friday morning with live cut-ins from the public landing by weatherman Willard Scott.
I say I like every town in America, and I like most of them, but I like some better than others, and I really do like Cincinnati very much. This is my 4th time here officially, but I've been here a couple times before, and a very dear friend of mine worked at WLW Radio for years, and because of him, I got to know the town pretty well 20-some years ago. Big fan of the city. It's a lovely, clean, beautiful city.
Now, this weekend attracted a lot of attention from the folks at NBC. Not only was Willard here for the Today Show, but the cast and crew of the Sunday Today Show came to town to do their show from the banks of the Ohio. The Sunday Today Show crew arrived last night. Host Maria Shriver and Garrick Utley were the guest of honor at a dinner at the Phoenix. I got a chance to talk to them about their visit to Cincinnati and the Tall Stacks weekend.
One of the things that we like about coming to a place to Cincinnati is to discover little tidbits of information which people here are well versed in. You grew up with it, but people elsewhere didn't know, and we didn't know. For example, the first professional sports team was founded here.
So the more that we can get out, if there's an occasion, we want to go out and visit as many cities as possible, because that way we get to do stories on specific cities, on the people that are in those cities. And then this, of course, had an occasion, the bicentennial celebration, and we were invited, bottom line.
It was back to work for Shriver and Utley this morning, up at 6, then down on the public landing by 7. Hundreds of people gathered to watch the show from Cincinnati as it was broadcast live to the nation.
From NBC News, this is Sunday Today with Garrick Utley and Maria Shriver, live from Cincinnati.
Good morning and welcome to Sunday Today from Cincinnati. I'm Garrick Utley.
And good morning, I'm Maria Shriver, and we are here along the banks of the Ohio River. And we are here, of course, to help Cincinnati celebrate its bicentennial.
Excitement has been everywhere for the Tall Stacks event. As a matter of fact, there was entertainment for the entire family, as our own Pat Berry found out.
There have been many bicentennial events this year, but the Tall Stacks was different because it offered something for the entire family.
We make a point of doing it, of trying to find things where the family can enjoy, and it's things to remember.
Nice family event.
I think every year would be great. Brings a lot of people into the city. I think it's nice.
I like doing all this stuff because then we get to do it and we get to learn stuff that we didn't know. They teach us all this new stuff, and then we teach our kids, see?
I just like watching the boats go up and down the river. Really nice.
Besides a gorgeous river view of the Tall Stacks, there was music provided by the Pleasant Hill Elementary School Chorus. There was a petting zoo for the kids, and lots of other entertainment, like magicians.
Is there about 1, 2, 3? We won't make this one. Is there? No. But if we tap this,
Cup, you see the balls reappear just like that.
The best thing about the entire Tall Stacks weekend, it was a great family event. But what's Cincinnati and getting a big group of people together without food? It all stacked up to be a great day. Great weather, great food, great fun, great family entertainment. But it was all too exciting for some people.
Our UC students looked into all aspects of the river, including the folklore.
Oh, hello. Come on up. Make yourself at home. So you say there ought to be more of the river than just the cargo boats and the show boats and such? Well, you're right. You know, some of the best stories about the river never get told the way they should. Well, I'm glad you came. You know, I've been living and working on this river since I was old enough to carry a crate or more a boat. I've heard more stories than you can imagine from the people who lived them. I've got them all right here. My own personal collection of folklore, fiction, and fact of the river. You ever hear the story about the legend of the flying turkeys? Now, don't laugh. My own granddad told me this one. Yep, seems he was a crew hand on the great Katie Prather. Well, one trip they made, Captain William Prather, he ordered the ship upriver to pick up a load of turkeys at Brush Creek. It seemed the river had been running a little low that week, like it has these parts here about this summer with the drought. Well, Captain Prather, he took the ship up anyway, and they finally docked at the creek. They loaded up about 75 crates of them wild turkeys. Yeah, my grandpappy, he was telling me all about it. There was a big ruckus. You should have heard the ruckus these birds made. Oh, where was I? Oh, yeah. They got these turkeys loaded up, all 75 crates of them. About that time, my grandpappy noticed the boat was a little low in the water. It wouldn't move an inch. Well, old Captain Prather, he wasn't bothered by it none. He just got this glint in his eye. Like he had some crazy, wild idea. He was known for his wild, crazy ideas. Well, Captain Prather, he ordered the crew to strap those turkeys down and tie them tight to the deck. Then he had one of the crewmates grab his old blunderbuss. That's an old musket. Had that blunderbuss loaded so he could shoot it off. Had it standing by. Well, he hollered down to the engineer in the hole, give her full ahead speed. About that same time, he fired that blunderbuss. Crack! A louder sound you never heard. All them turkeys took off a-flying and a-squealing and a-fussing and feuding, and well, they lifted that boat right out of the shallow water and into the current. Yeah. That old crew, when they got back to Cincinnati, they had them the best Thanksgiving they ever had with those crates of turkeys. Now, ain't that a story?
Stay tuned. The departure ceremonies are next as Tall Stacks 88 continues.
Tall Stacks to head out. Toria Hamill is live at the public landing.
Our very special Tall Stacks weekend is drawing to a close, and I think as we see the steamships roll out, it's only appropriate we hear America the Beautiful from the Gateway Chorus.
Oh!
Hartford, who gave us an up-to-date account of the steamships as they pulled past. The spectacle has been so beautiful. The crowds gathered here to say goodbye to the tall stacks is really an unbelievable sight. Now, tall stack steamboats has been a once-in-a-lifetime event, a moment in history that you're going to remember and treasure forever. Thank you for joining us for the departure ceremonies and for celebrating Cincinnati's 200th birthday in style. Good night, everybody.
You know, in this bicentennial year, we tend to take our celebrations by the river now for granted. We've had so many of them, but this is as beautiful as anything as we watch not just the fireworks in the sky and not just the skyline, which we've celebrated on prior occasions, but tonight the river and the boats that are so much a part of our history.
You know, it is like a step back into history. As the sun sets along the river and along the city, then you see the boats leaving. It's very touching. That's the only thing I can say. The boats leaving, their big paddle wheels pushing through the water. It's gorgeous.
The river at one time, of course, was our major source of long-distance transportation, and in a sense, tonight, the river is once again our means of transportation, this time as we travel back into our past.
And not only did it transport us back into our past, but it brought us all together. Families, kids on their shoulders, waving at the ships. Those are the kind of visions that I'm going to take away from this weekend.
One of the comments we have heard throughout this weekend, if we've been down here, is the nature of the crowd of people. I mean, this was the ultimate family event.
Absolutely.
And it was just a pride in terms of we've come a long way in this community and in this city, and we've got something very much to be proud of, with this river really being its center.
And we've also come a long way back, bringing the family back together, and that's what this event did. You see, I've seen more strollers here this weekend than I've seen in a long time, and a lot of kids, happy faces, in awe of these humongous boats.
If you think about it, we're tempted to say that, well, this was a great event for Cincinnati and we won't see it for another 100 years, but, you know, maybe some other city will have it. The fact is that isn't the case. What we saw here this weekend, the remaining big stern wheelers, the paddle boats, coming here to Cincinnati, this is the only place in the country that it happens anymore at all. And so what our kids got to see this weekend is something that no one else in the world gets to see, and perhaps not anymore. I mean, who knows if 100 years from now we're going to really be able to do things like this, or whether those boats will be around anymore. But what we saw now is a part of our heritage.
It's a part of the city. It's almost the signature of the city, the river is, and a signature of being a wonderful bicentennial city celebration, which we've celebrated all year long, and we're still celebrating in it, and we've got a few more months to go to celebrate. What a party.
Yes, I suspect there's part of each of us that would love to be in one of those boats that are pulling out, not just for a short
I would like to take one down the Mississippi or down the Ohio. It would be wonderful.
But we don't have time right now because, you see, we got to stick around here. We've got another hour of show coming your way on the Tall Stacks 88, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
Tall Stacks is presented by the Greater Cincinnati Bicentennial Commission in celebration of our city's 200th birthday.
The commission was formed in 1983 with a specific set of goals to create a permanent legacy, to create a celebration involving area residents, and attract tourist and national attention to our city. Lasting reminders of this year's celebration, the 22-acre Bicentennial Commons, improvements to the Commons Eggleston Avenue entrance, the 4-mile River Walk, and the new Museum Center at Union Terminal. Projects representing nearly $65 million worth of capital improvements. In addition, over $1 million was raised to present over 40 different educational, community, and cultural programs. None of this would have been possible without the support of the greater Cincinnati business community and countless thousands of you who have given over 1 million hours of your time. Our thanks to all who have given generously so that greater Cincinnatians and visitors from all over the world can celebrate 88. A message from the Greater Cincinnati Bicentennial Commission.
You know, we're watching the boats as they leave and the calliope sound and the people waving on board.
We've been spending most of the show going like this, waving behind
the people as they go by. It is an absolutely gorgeous sight. The sun is now setting and the lights from the boats on the river. It's absolutely beautiful.
It is. Michael Collins has been spending this whole weekend just kind of hanging out. Right now he's hanging out on the public landing, so let's go to him. Mike?
I don't know. I think this was probably more thrilling than the fireworks. God Bless America just sent chills up my spine. Or America the Beautiful, that was the song. I lost my... You've been down here all weekend. What's your name?
Corey Dolan.
Yeah, and what were you telling me before? What was your favorite part?
When the Delta Queen and the Belleville were racing. It was just the neatest thing I've ever saw. And we were right up on them on a towboat, the Clary Beatty.
And you lived on a boat for a while, huh?
Mm-hmm. 5 years.
And kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And here's some other people who have been here all weekend, haven't you? Did you find a place to park, or did you just camp out all weekend here?
Parking was fantastic. We took a shuttle at Park Crest and came on down and got a bus. Got off on the plaza here.
How many boats have you guys been on this weekend?
This week?
Not on any of them because they were all sold out.
Yeah.
But
so you just came down here and watched?
Right. For the whole day, practically, Friday. The weather was gorgeous and everything just was so well organized.
Everybody has had a wonderful time here. And did you have something? What's that?
City. Great honor to our city.
It sure is. Jerry and Norma?
All right, thanks a lot, Michael. It was an honor to the city and an honor to the people to be here. It was absolutely wonderful.
We're on the map. People know we're no longer America's best-kept secret. They know we exist.
That's right. While there's been entertainment all weekend long on the riverfront, there's also been a lot of things to do, not just for you or yourself, but for the whole family.
No matter what kind of music you like, chances are you heard it down on the riverfront this weekend. There was the all-American Dixieland sound of the Cincinnati Dancing Pigs. Vintage jazz by Cincinnati's own Kathy Wade. And members of the Junior Strings Fiddle Factory provided some classic elegance. Other attractions included a petting zoo and magicians and kept thousands of kids entertained.
1, 2, 3, we'll make this ball vanish.
Well, we had entertainment, but we also had a couple of mysteries to solve. Is there buried gold on the banks of the Ohio? Well, our UC students looked into that story.
I've got another story for you. Did you know there's over $1 million in gold buried right here in Ohio? Well, I'm just pulling your leg. It ain't really true. But there's a man that went looking for it anyway. And this is his story.
When I was a boy, about 8 years of age, my granddad called me into his den. After locking the door, he reached into his oak cabinet and pulled out an old metal box. There may be $2 million, he said to me, buried in a chest halfway up the hill across the river from Coney Island. I know. My own grandfather buried it there. Well, he pulled some old worn notes from the chest and handed them to me. These are the notes that I wrote while sitting at your great-great-grandfather's bedside just before he died. They tell exactly where and how the treasure came to be buried. The whole story. It's here. Well, I told him right then that I didn't want to get involved, ever. I couldn't possibly go looking for buried treasure. So my granddad made me promise to tell the story, either to my children or to my grandchildren, in the hope that they would seek it out. I think he considered the story something of a last will and testament, or even a confession, something he just had to get off his chest. I took the worn papers in my hands and began to read. My part in the secret plot began when I was selected to be one of 50 horsemen to escort a huge federal payroll chest from Maysville, Kentucky to Fort Washington and Cincinnati. It was April of 1802, and we were riding just one day out of the city through some of the worst Indian country in the region. As we set for camp that night, two of my riding partners and I talked out a plan to steal the gold. We would all get guard duty together the next night, sneak the gold chest out, and then bury it a short distance from the camp. We would recover it later after the troops left in search of it. If we moved fast enough, we knew our plan would work. Well, the next night came around, and the boys and I got good and ready. But before we had a chance to move, a wild whooping call cut through the air. It was the Indians. They spilled out of all sides around us. Everything happened so fast. I ran out to the edge of the camp where I found the company sergeant hiding the gold chest. "Give me a hand," he said to me. "The gold should be safe for Cross River." The sergeant and I then dragged the huge chest down to the riverside, where we guided it into the river, strapped to a huge log. But the river ran too high on us, and the current took the log right away, taking us with it. I looked over and saw the sergeant struggling with the current. Then he went under. That was the last I saw of him. The chest, meanwhile, got caught on some rocks by the shore. I swam over to it and managed to pull it up where I had hid it under some brush. Then I dug a hole and buried it. The next morning, I walked the many miles back to Fort Washington, where I learned that I was one of only 5 horsemen to survive the Indian attack. I told the fort commander that the gold had been lost in the river, but because of his suspicion, there was no way I could leave the camp to get the gold without being followed. So I decided to keep the burial a secret until I could tell my own kin, so that maybe, someday, this whole ordeal could come to some good after all. I must find the gold for myself. I still have the notes. Everything's clear enough. Here's the path that leads right to it. I'm too far in to turn back now. This is it. More than 100 years of history, and now only 3 feet of dirt separates me from a fortune in gold. No, I can't do it. The gold must remain buried forever.
Hi, Steve Caminiti here, famous Cincinnati comedian with the bogus Bicentennial Minute. You know, as a comedian, I travel all around this great country, and people frequently ask me, why is Cincinnati called the Queen City? Well, there's a lot of stories, a lot of reasons people are going to tell you. Don't believe them. Here's the real story. Cincinnati was originally supposed to be called the Delta City, not the Queen City. See, what happened was this. The Wright brothers, you know, the famous airplane dudes from Dayton, were on their way to a vacation in Kitty Hawk. They got to Cincinnati. They had to stop for some gas and like a beef jerky and like a sandwich and some Doritos. And while they were here, they spotted the Delta Queen. Well, Wilbur says to Orville, "Hey, that would be a great name for an airline." Well, the rest is history. They continued on down to North Carolina, invented the airplane, and called it Delta. Well, Cincinnati still didn't have a nickname because Delta was taken, so they settled on the Queen City, because it was the only thing left. Not a bad nickname, but still pretty good. Hey, buddy! Can I get a ride? Whoa! Nah, that didn't really happen. See, I made all that stuff up, because nobody really knows how Queen City got the name. Perhaps they got it from a poem by Longfellow, made famous by Longfellow. It goes something like this. Queen of the West in her garland dress on the banks of the beautiful river. Kind of brings a tear to your eye, doesn't it? Whoa! 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 This is Steve Caminiti. Happy birthday, Cincinnati!
There is more on this wonderful weekend coming up.
Denny is a 58-year-old authentic stern wheeler based in Charleston. And the brand new West Virginia Belle. Huntington is home to this paddle wheeler.
And welcome back to our celebration of Tall Stacks 88.
It's been great. You know, when we first started this program back on Friday, you know, I thought for a while we were all bicentennialed out with the celebration on July 4th and the fireworks celebration and all that, but this has just caught on, and being down there on the river and watching there you see the waterworks that they have right in the middle of the river.
They're using the river as like an ultimate fountain.
It's
beautiful.
It's been a great event. People that have been down here have just loved it. They said they've never seen anything like it, and the fact is, they're telling you the truth. This is more than just fireworks. This is a real part of our history. You know, when we...
An estimated crowd of, what, 500,000 were supposed to come down here?
That's right. And I don't think anybody was disappointed.
No, I don't think anybody was.
You know, when we think about the river, we think about the fun we have in it with the pleasure craft. We also think in terms of its beauty, the sunsets on the shimmering waters. But perhaps the most important part of our river is the business that it brings to our area. The tow barge business is big business. One of the leaders in this industry is located right here in the Queen City. A division of Midland Enterprises, the Ohio River Company is located in the 580 building. It's the largest mover of dry bulk commodities on the inland waterways. The company's barges have been traveling past our city for over half a century.
We started business in 1925, so just about 63 years ago. Started with 3 steam paddle boats and about 100 barges.
From this central point, the dispatchers can provide precise information on each of the barges and the goods that they carry. The board, along with the computer, act as a kind of visual aid. At a glance, they can keep track of some 2,200 barges operating on a dozen or so rivers. A variety of products are transported on these different rivers.
Principal products are coal, grain, coke, steel and scrap, gasoline, other chemicals.
In order to transport these products, a number of different types of barges are needed.
We operate approximately 80 towboats that range in size from 1,000 horsepower on up to 10,500 horsepower. And we operate approximately 2,200 barges that vary from open barges that carry coal or aggregates to covered barges for grain to various tank barges for chemicals and gasoline products.
With so many barges on different rivers, an effective means of communication is a necessity. For this reason, the Ohio River Company operates radio station WCM.
It operates 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and the main purpose of it is to communicate with our boats. Anything that happens on a boat gets reported into the radio station, which then it puts it into our computer system and has it available for our people in the office. It also serves as an emergency situation. If a boat has a problem, he calls the radio station. The radio operators know who's responsible that evening for any various problem that would come up.
The Ohio River Company explored the beauty of the river and commissioned Gregory Lindsay Thorpe to photograph different aspects of it. The result seemed to capture the true essence of the waterway. The Ohio River Company is a thriving modern company based on an old idea.
Now, if the river has a heart, the men who embody that are its captains. And the younger captains are carrying on the tradition, but there are those who help define it. John Beatty is one such man. He's one of the oldest active captains, and he lives, restores, and builds boats on his home in Warsaw, Kentucky.
Say that with reverence. He's to be respected. I always had a rowboat from the time I built my first canoe when I was 4.5 years old. I always had a boat sometime. You have no idea how smart I was. At 4.5 years old, I thought I knew it all. Well, it finally got to the point that I decided the longer I live, the dumber I'm going to get. Here I am, almost 75 years old. I don't know nothing.
All you have to say to John is, it can't be done. And he says, oh, can it? Choom, and away it goes, you know.
How's your captain? All gone? All gone.
All gone.
When just one day you're standing up there in the pilot house and all the weight of the world's on your shoulders. I always did steer for my dad when I got big enough. About 11 years old on, anytime we were on a boat together, I always operated the boat and he'd go down and work on deck for me. I would say that he was the most thorough teacher and the hardest man in the world to work for. If you did anything right, that's what you were supposed to do. If you did anything wrong, he told you about it. If he never did anything else in the world, he taught me how to work. And it's just been great. I wish he was still here.
Oh, that's still
He gets out here and he'll go right with me every hour, 9, 10 hours a day, and stay right there and work just as hard as you will. And when I'm 74, I hope I can do that.
I always say boys don't change after the age of 5, and he got in a lot of trouble when he was 5, and he's still getting in trouble.
I was supposed to be the smart aleck down here in the ice in 1978. And who sunk the only boat? Me. So I'm not too smart.
We knew we were going to have a solid ice river, and we told all the barge lines, do not start your boats and barges from the upper river. They kept pushing in anyway. And then, of course, when the ice broke, they all broke loose and boom, 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 mess in the river, and that's when he went out and caught towboats and barges, and eventually the ice got our towboat. He didn't want to be out there, but you had to stop towboats that had whole crews on them from going down into this dam.
I have never seen anything like this. It's just overpowering. It's this ice is so great and so tough. Maybe I just don't think big enough to cope with it, but you can hear this ice pop and crack and the barges creak and groan, and you just don't know when it's going to blow up in your face.
How's it make you feel to see your boat sit there stuck in the ice?
Oh, I was sort of numb inside for several hours, but it's an accepted fact that she may be with us and she may not. It's just sort of like a member of the family that's gravely ill.
The only great sorrow was that we have no sons, and I always wanted to have a pilot one year, a deckhand the next, and an engineer the next, and the Lord didn't get
We're going to build us a river company.
But it is too bad, because this family's been here since 1837, and he is the end of it, and I'm very sorry about that.
The very tail end of it.
But I do think that John kind of thinks he owns the Ohio River. And he's never happy when he's away from it too long.
There's a part of me that would love to be on that boat.
Just going down the river.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here, though. We wouldn't want to lose you.
Well, there are probably a whole bunch of people out there that say, I wish he'd been on that boat leaving down.
You know, we've learned a whole lot about the river this weekend, this Tostax weekend. I think a lot of people have learned things they've never known before about the history of the river and how it operates and all that. Well, Michael Collins has learned a lot, too, except this is a little different, and he has a unique way of looking at some river trivia.
1830 to 1870, there was a movement underway to centralize the nation's capital and move it from Washington, D.C. right here to Cincinnati. The idea seemed to be a pretty good one, too, back then. Even the New York Times touted Cincinnati as having the most metropolitan atmosphere outside of New York City. The idea began to snowball, and by 1870, they even held a convention here. Obviously, nothing happened, but imagine with me, if you will, what Cincinnati may have looked like as the nation's capital.
Like the Taft Museum as the White House, or Union Terminal as the Capitol Building, or what if Fountain Square was the site of the Washington Monument?
It's probably just as well it didn't happen. Just think, on double coupon days at Kroger, we'd have to go through a security check, because that's when Nancy shops.
The Mark Twain was built in 1964 and is based at Twain's boyhood home, Hannibal, Missouri. And the Becky Thatcher, named for a Twain character, Cincinnati is now home to this riverboat.
You know, since the beginning of time, they've had these races between the majestic queens of the river, these riverboats, and Michael Collins joins us now to tell us a little about that.
Yesterday there was a race with the smaller boats, and you got to go along on the race. Did you hamper anybody?
I hope not. It was great fun. There were actually 4 boats, the Mark Twain, the Becky Thatcher, the Southern Belle, and the River Queen. Now, one thing to remember about races like these is this is not a major sporting event. This has about as much impact as a presidential primary in the American Virgin Islands.
With the balloons as our signal, we on the Southern Belle were off. Our rivals, the Becky Thatcher and the River Queen behind us, the Mark Twain in the lead. Now, Las Vegas will never lay odds on a race like this. You see, these boats only go about 7 or 8 knots. They're not for racing. They're for
cruising, enjoying the river, and just, you know, dining in luxury and not have to worry about everything.
These boats go so slow, as a matter of fact, at the finish line, I'm not so sure whether or not it'll break the ribbon or the ribbon will stop the boat.
As we turn downriver to come back, the River Queen cuts us off. The captain takes drastic measures.
If the folks that are in the restrooms right now will flush the commodes all at the same time, on 3, give us a little extra current. I think that would help Frank out a little bit.
Everyone did their part.
1, 2. 1, 2.
But no one here would go the extra mile.
If it looks like we're losing the race, are you willing to jump off the boat so that it'll be lighter and we go faster?
No, I can't swim.
No, sir.
You know, it's kind of like an old saying of the sea, women and children first.
But that's in a boat, not in the water.
As a result, you see what happened. Cincinnati's Becky Thatcher won, and we came in 3rd.
So the final results were done with the Becky Thatcher in 1st, the Mark Twain in 2nd, the Southern Belle in 3rd, and the River Queen in 4th. I personally put my money on the Ocean Wimp, and that didn't even place. So.
The ocean.
Why do I believe that?
I don't know about you, Michael. Sometimes you're just a little on the strange side, but that's okay.
Is riverboat racing something you want to get into?
It's fun. It's slow. It's a relaxing race. It's probably the most
probably the only relaxing race that there have ever been. Right.
Nobody gets tossed off.
That's
the thing
right.
doesn't burn. Okay. Well, you know, river races are fun and exciting, but they were also dangerous. In fact, from 1850 to 1860, they had something like 1,500 riverboat accidents. That gave rise to the Coast Guard being assigned to the Ohio River. We'll take a look at that story. The Ohio River is a place where all of us feel welcome, whether it's Riverfest or just walking along the Bicentennial Commons. Sometimes we don't stop and think about the dangers that the river holds. This evening, we're going to meet someone that makes our river just a little bit safer.
Along the Ohio River, the Coast Guard performs, first of all, its traditional function of search and rescue. We also do various barge boardings, inspections of towboats to make sure that they comply with federal regulations regarding those vessels. In addition, Coast Guard's always prepared to monitor pollution spills on the river, maintain the aids to navigation so that all the buoys and day marks are kept in proper shape and order for the towboats as they navigate along the stream. 150 years ago, in 1838, in April, there was a well-known riverboat called the Moselle, which was building a reputation as one of the fastest, if not the fastest boat between Cincinnati and St. Louis. And in late April in 1838, the Moselle departed from Cincinnati after picking up passengers, went across the river to Newport to pick up other passengers, and just as it was pulling away, the boilers exploded. There was a horrendous loss of life. The master of the vessel himself was thrown out onto the streets of Newport and died. As a result of that, there were a number of public hearings in Cincinnati, chaired by the mayor, because the citizens were concerned about an increasing number of steamboat explosions. So it was the Moselle disaster that led to an office that now is contained in Coast Guard day-to-day functions.
If you were down along the river this weekend, you may have noticed that certain precautions were taken to protect the tall stacks.
Primarily, the Coast Guard's interested that the event comes off safely, so we'll be establishing security zones around the riverboats. Everybody, of course, wants to go up and see a riverboat closely by boat, but these riverboats are going to be in and out, just like fireworks going off over the entire crowd. So we'll be setting up the security zones and asking people not to go in them so that the riverboats can maneuver safely and the races can come off safely.
Now, the race we all know about is the famous race between the Delta Queen and the Belle of Louisville, and Ken covered that this afternoon. It was an exciting race.
It was a great race. You know, normally they have this race along about Kentucky Derby time down in Louisville, and they had it this year too, but this was kind of a special thing today.
And we thought, see, we're not just talking about the river here, we're talking about a sport, racing, and we felt it imperative that you come here, Ken Broo, our sports director, to tell us about this race. Call it for us,
There was some heavy bets going down today on the river, let me tell you that. It was a great race today. The Belle of Louisville against the Delta Queen. Now, the Delta Queen had the home turf. She was the favorite. Let me show you how the race went down this afternoon.
They lined the shore today, and any bridge was fair game, too. The perfect shot was anywhere along the Ohio, even if your camera looked like it was once used by Matthew Brady. This was the main event, the Belle of Louisville against the Delta Queen. On the line, the Super Bowl trophy of tall stacks, the Golden Antlers. Belle and the Queen race every year in Louisville, right around Derby time. But today was a bonus race, just for us. And a little after 3 o'clock, the dash was on. And they were off. A race from the Southern Railway Bridge to the L&N Bridge. The Delta Queen, the last of the great wooden ships, built in Scotland over 60 years ago. Home port, our town, Cincinnati, USA. And the Belle of Louisville, built in Pittsburgh back in 1914. The last of the original Mississippi River-style steamboats. They churned the Ohio, the huge paddles lifting the water, and with it, memories of a time lost long ago, long before there were Bengals or Reds. Plenty of people laid a Sunday afternoon bet or two on a race like this, and today, the smart money was on the Cincinnati Delta Queen. She crossed the finish line first. She had to. Everybody knows you never lose a home game.
Yeah, I heard some rumblings that maybe it was fixed, you know, the Delta Queen. I don't know, so we'll know, I guess, next year if the Belle of Louisville wins down in Louisville next May.
I lost my bet on the Bengals, but hey.
You won this one.
I won this one.
That's
okay.
right.
Alrighty. You know, earlier we talked a little bit about the folklore and the fiction surrounding the Ohio River. Now we have the UC students staging a recreation of an interesting fact. In fact, I got to play a cameo appearance in this part.
Well, I told you some folklore, and I told you some fiction. But you want the real stuff, don't you? Well, I knew you did. This here's a true story about the pirates of the Ohio River. They're the outlaws of Cave in the Rock.
We'd been traveling for about a week, hauling a load of dry goods from Pittsburgh to St. Louis.
Looks like a beacon to me, sir.
Ho there!
Who goes there?
You better pull up shore for the night. There's been hijackings upriver lately.
I told you, Captain. Just before we left for Pittsburgh, I heard about a boat disappearing from these parts. They say it was pirates. The boat showed up 2 weeks later, the whole crew was gone.
How'd you come to know about this, stranger?
I got a shack about 2 miles upriver, and I've been hearing some strange things happening.
What sort of things, you say?
Well, late at night when I'm pulling in my line, I hear shouts and shooting downriver. Now, there ain't no settlements in these parts, and I know all the fur trappers around here. Quite a lot they are.
Well, I guess we better tie up here tonight, fellas, just to be sure.
Right this way.
We didn't know it at the time, but we've been tricked by the infamous outlaws of Cave-In Rock.
Let's go. Move on. Keep going. Well, what do we got here?
We got us some river boys. We're going to make some free donations to our supply hold.
Whiskey. It'll be your last.
I don't know what you all are laughing about. There's plenty of cargo to be unloaded yet. Get down there and do it. You'd think an expert riverboat captain would know better than to trust a stranger at night.
So, you're the famous Samuel Mason, once a soldier in Washington's own army. I've got respect for a military man, but I never thought I'd see one make a fool of himself as a pirate.
You'd better watch your words, Captain. I've got very little sympathy for my prisoners, especially one so sure as you.
I'm sure the marshals will come looking for us in an hour or so. Everyone knows these parts are bad.
Then why did you come right to me, Captain? You'd better ask yourself that, because it'll be the last thing you ever remember. Take them away! You know what to do. Take these men to the other side of the woods and let them go.
Come on. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Come on.
Get out of here.
Go on.
That was the one and only time I got to meet face to face the outlaws of Cave-In Rock. Thank God I lived to tell the tale.
Well, most of what we've been seeing tonight has been folklore of our community. That's a bit of history, and the UC students put it together, did a great job.
And you played an acting role there.
Yeah, I stood.
If somebody blinked, they could have missed it.
That's right. Well, my career is limited.
Well, we like you right here, Jerry. Thanks a lot. We'll be back in just a minute with more from Tall Stacks 88. Stay with us.
Presented by the Greater Cincinnati Bicentennial Commission in celebration of our city's 200th birthday. There's just one major bicentennial event left after this weekend. The birthday, December 28th, a day-long party ushering in our third century. Join us as we bring this historic year to a close in December. A message from the Greater Cincinnati Bicentennial Commission.
This has been an absolutely gorgeous weekend for the Tall Stacks, and it's been a wonderful time to look back at our river history. Not just for the people that came down here, but for everybody at home, everybody watching. And it's also been a very good learning experience for some students at the University of Cincinnati. They helped us put this show together.
I'd like to introduce you to the senior student producer, Richard Trenz. Richard, thanks for being with us. Thanks for your work in this particular project. How did you get started in it? When did it all
Well,
come together?
originally, Judy Van Cleve from USU and the broadcast advisory panel at UC talked to Dr. Wolfram and Tony Kiernan from WLWT. And then Dr. Wolfram picked Susan Brannigan and myself to be the original two students. And from that, Susan and myself held interviews and pulled the rest of the students. And
Okay,
then
did you come up with the ideas for what stories to cover about this?
All the story ideas were originals, and we had brainstorming sessions and picked different aspects of the river, which we thought people might not know about.
Did you learn anything, not just about the history of the Ohio River, but you also learned something about putting together a TV show?
We learned all the frustrations that people go to put a TV show together, all the step-by-step. It's a different kind of experience when you do something outside of a classroom.
Are you frustrated enough not to want to try and take our jobs?
No, I think most of us are still going to try to stick with it.
Yeah, well, good for you, good for you. I understand you put some home movies together about what this experience was like for the students at the University of Cincinnati.
Yes, this is the thing we put together is a lighthearted look at our experiences during the summer.
Okay, and it doesn't reflect negatively on me or anybody else associated with Channel 5. Is that true?
That's true.
You want to promise that to the people? Okay, let's take a look at the home movies of the UC students putting together tonight's program.
UC. who chose a career in TV. They were given the task of producing en masse alongside WLWT.
We've got a lot of nice stuff.
Meetings were held to gather the facts we would need to bring you Tall Stacks. With knowledge our guide, we started to shoot stories on land and of boats that toot toot. Now our shooting was finished, but editing was needed. We wanted to be sure the viewers weren't cheated. So this is the story of a class from UC who decided to make careers in TV.
Please don't do that. You're getting on my nerves.
But before we finish, there's one thing to say.
From all the broadcasting majors at UC, happy birthday, Cincinnati!
Okay, well, we want to certainly thank the students for being involved in this particular project. The kind of experience we've had, I think, we'd like to do it again with the students. So
Thank you. I think everybody would be willing to do that.
Excellent job. Absolutely wonderful
really
work.
And we'll invite you back for the tricentennial, okay?
I hope we'll be around.
They'll probably be inviting us back for the tricentennial.
Young guys trying to get into television. Thanks a lot.
It was an absolutely gorgeous Tall Stacks weekend. We hope you enjoyed the Tall Stacks event, all the big, beautiful boats, and hope you have a lot of wonderful memories.
Okay, and I certainly hope that you've enjoyed not just taking a look at the fireworks and the boats and talking about the people that have been down here, but also recognize the great history that our community has. In a sense, it all started at the river. We weren't a community until we had that river first. With that river, we found a place where the settlers could come, where trade could come, where the city could develop business. And if you think about it, every time the city has neglected its river, it goes in a downward strain. And then all of a sudden, we started to remember what the river has meant to us. And we take a look today, even today, though we don't have the river boats anymore, today we look at the banks of our great river in northern Kentucky as well as here in Cincinnati.
Isn't that a beautiful shot? That's the Island Queen in front of a fountain that's been put up out in the middle of the Ohio River. It's taking off just like the rest of the boats have taken off, departed from a wonderful weekend. Those of us that got to see the boats and got to go on board the boats have a different look at how we started, I think, and a different feel about where we all came from.
You know, today we have, of course, airports and expressways which are in charge of our transportation and our development. Of course, before there were airports and before there were expressways, God gave us rivers, and that's how we got around in this world. And where the rivers went, that's where the cities developed. That's part of our history today. And even now, as we develop along the river banks, we start to recognize that the river is not just a means of getting someplace, but it is also the center of our community. What we are today is based on what our river has given us. So we're God blessed to have that.
Right now, we pretty much use the river for recreation. There is some commerce, obviously, that goes up and down on the barges that we see, but people get out on their boats and enjoy the river. But we forget that it was a working tradition back in the days 200 years ago or 100 years ago.
And maybe there's a lesson we can take from all this. You know, we spent the whole weekend saying how much we love the river and how much we honor it and how much we use it. Maybe now we have to learn not to abuse it, and not to pollute it, and not to destroy the great gift that God has given us, not just the beautiful scenery of the river, but also what the river provides us with. So if we start to respect the river, that'll be the best thing that can be said about the Cincinnati community.
And we also look back at a wonderful bicentennial year. This is one of the big events that caps off our bicentennial year. We had the fireworks going off from the rooftops of the buildings. That was a spectacular sight. Jerry and I both said to each other, what can top this? Well, I think we found something that can top it. A wonderful Tall Stacks weekend with majestic boats coming into the Ohio River, and it's just gorgeous.
And for those of you who are visiting Cincinnati, we certainly hope you enjoy your stay here, and when you go back to your respective homes, you tell the people what a great community Cincinnati is. By the riverside. Come on down by the riverside, the Queen City. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Good night.
Thank you.